York, it may be crippled by endless strikes and technical faults, but the bosses of London's transport network appear to have other matters on their minds. In new TfL equality and inclusion guidance, baffled staff have been banned from using the word accident in case it offends and told to use the word collision instead. Meanwhile, young people replaces youngsters, and it's older rather than elderly. Now, Kevin, I'm going to come to you because you have quite strong views on this.
Well, I'm a bit pedantic about language, and this kind of nonsense reduces language to imprecision. So, collision is not the same as accident. If you say accident, it means it's no one's fault. If you say collision, you don't know if it's an accident. So it's less descriptive of what actually happened. Older does not mean old. You can be 4 years old and be older. So elderly describes the elderly, it describes old people. Older people does not.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you entirely.
This is Orwellian nonsense.
It isn't. What it is it's changing it, because actually elderly is a terrible word. Because
it means old people.
No,
you might not like it, but it means old people.
What are you doing it for? You're trying to say, if you look around and you see an older person who needs a seat, then give that older person a seat. Now, somebody who might be older, but they're not elderly. Then you might have somebody who is elderly, but they're perfectly okay about standing up.
It doesn't mean old.
Well, what are you going to do? If you're really going to be pedantic, let's call them valetudinarians. Let's do that.
Well, that's a very good one.
Thank you.
But we had all this in medicine, so we used to have geriatrics, and of course it became care of the elderly.
Yeah, I was a geriatric pregnant woman.
Yes.
What?
Because I was over 35 or so. That was very insulting.
No, you're right, Kevin. Grammatically, you are right. And, of course, being older doesn't mean that you're old.
Yeah,
exactly
you can be 4 years old and be older than a 3-year-old. You know, it was the Local Government Association last week came up with all these terms and words you can't use. One of them was you can't use the term economic migrants. Well, suppose I want to describe economic migrants. What do I call them? This is Orwellian. The idea is you get rid of these phrases, you get rid of these words, and therefore the language cannot function properly, and they achieve some kind of political purpose.
Words change, though, and words change their meaning. And, you know, sometimes we just have to adapt.
There's nothing wrong with the word elderly. It describes old people.
I think
older does not describe old people. That's what I hate about this. It is a mangling of a perfectly good language.
Doesn't it just seem like they're doing this for the sake of it? I don't really understand the point of it.
Why
don't they just run tubes
But I think there are lots of different reasons here.
I mean, just a wild thought.
Controversial.
Some of it is because they don't want to cause offence and they're worried. So, you know, when they're telling their employees to say they instead of he and she, we all know that's, you know, that's to do with, you know, gender and non-binary and trans debates and so on. But the trouble with that is, I agree with Kevin on that particular point. If they do say, if one employee says to another employee, refers to somebody as they, the other employee has no idea
who you're talking
about. Or exactly. So it is, you know, it's a bit ridiculous. And I think the thing with accident and collision, it sounds to me like they don't want to accept that an accident that's happened on their lines might be their fault. So they're trying to make it's kind of weaselly.
And by the way, replacing they and them for he and she, you can't use plurals for singular entities.
Well, you can.
So if you're talking about you can't.
You can now.
You can't look at a single person and say they.
Yeah,
they is a plural.
You can't.
Only if you can't speak English properly.